In the first part of this knit along, we did most of the knitting. We made the body of the tee and finished the back. The second part is less about knitting and more about using different knitting techniques. And we'll start by shaping the neckline using short rows, just as it is instructed in step 4 of the pattern. Now that we finished the back of the tee, we can put this group of stitches aside. It's still sitting on a circular needle, and that's great. I'm gonna just tuck it at the back of the work, and now we'll focus on the other group of stitches, the one that's been sitting on the needle waiting for its turn. This group of stitches will form the front of the tee, and we're gonna work on the front, doing a bit of straight knitting, but mostly shaping the neckline, and we're going to use short rows for that. So place the work so that you are looking at the right side of the front, so the right side of this group of stitches. And now we're gonna attach the yarn. There is no special way to do that, simply just leave a tail and just keep the yarn ready to wrap the tip of the right needle. And we're gonna work the same right side and wrong side rows that we worked when we were making the back of the tee. So we're gonna make the same edging here. And if you decided to make the sleeves longer at this point, remember we were casting on additional stitches. So now you would need to do that again. You would need to cast on additional stitches at the beginning of the first 2 rows. So you will have the same number of stitches at one side of the work, and then in the next row you will cast on additional number of stitches at the other side of the work. But we're not gonna do that right now. Like I said, we're gonna just follow the pattern. But if you do want to make the sleeves longer, so at this point you need to make some extra work. You need to cast on more stitches. So right side row is exactly the same as the one that we've been working when we made the back of the tee. We're gonna knit 1 stitch, and like I said, no special way to attach the yarn, simply fold it, and then when you insert the tip of the right needle into the first stitch, simply place that fold onto the needle and then pull it through. This first stitch is gonna be loose, but don't worry, we'll fix it when we get to weaving in tails. Now I leave the tail aside. I put the tail aside and I keep the working yarn, and make sure it is working yarn that comes from the ball, because you don't want to re-knit it later on, right? So we knit 1 stitch, then we slip 1 stitch with the yarn at the back of the work. We do it purlwise, inserting the needle from right to left, and then we work 3 stitches in a ribbing pattern. We purl 1, knit 1, and then purl 1 again. And now we're gonna knit to the last 5 stitches of this group, so same way as we did for the back. So we knit to the last 5 stitches over here. Okay, let's see, 6 stitches. So I knit 1 more stitch, and I came to the point where I have just 5 stitches left on the left needle. And now it's time to make another edging at the other side of the work. So we do it again, purl 1 stitch, 3 stitches in a ribbing, knit 1, purl 1, and then we slip 1 stitch with the yarn at the back of the work and knit the last stitch. Turn your work. And now we work the wrong side row, again exactly the same way as we did when we worked on the back. And if you decided to make the sleeve longer, at this point you would need to cast on those extra stitches again. That would be the last time that you cast them on. So the wrong side row, slip 1 stitch with the yarn at the front of the work, then we purl 1 stitch, and then make that little band worked in ribbing, purl and knit, and then we purl all stitches to the last 5 stitches of this row, of this group of stitches. Okay, 1 more stitch, and I'm ready to make the edging. Knit 1 stitch, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, and slip the last stitch with the yarn in front of the work. This stitch is quite loose, see, and yeah, it's easy to see, but that's because that's the spot where we attach the yarn, and the yarn is not really tied into the work, so that's why it is loose. But don't worry, we'll fix that easily when we weave in the tail. You simply pull the tail a bit to make the stitch smaller and then hide the tail, and that will fix the issue completely. So now turn your work and keep going, keep working right side row and wrong side row, right side row and wrong side row, until you make as many rows as is instructed in step 4.1 of the pattern. So the number of rows would be different for every size. For me, it's gonna be 16 rows, so I'm gonna work 14 more rows, and again the number of rows is counted from the spot where we divided the stitches, from the underarm. So I'm going to knit one stitch, then slip one, and so on. So just right side row and wrong side row until you make that the number of rows that you are supposed to make according to the step 4.1 of the pattern. And just as we did when we made the bag, finish with the wrong side row. These are the last stitches of my 16th row, and the pattern tells me to finish 16 rows before I could shape the neckline. So I'm all done, and that was the wrong side row. So now when I turn my work, I'm looking at the right side of the work, and that's how it's supposed to be. So now if you're not sure again how many rows you worked, simply count either the column of purls on the wrong side of the work or the column of knits on the wrong side of the work. And you should have the number of rows that is mentioned in step 4 of the pattern. So now it's time for the fun part, and the fun part would be the short row shaping. We're gonna make a neckline right here at the kind of center of the front where it should be, right? And we'll do it with the short rows. Simply follow the instructions in the pattern for the short rows, and we start with the short row 1. We'll start with the right side of the neckline, with this side. So we'll leave those stitches for now, and we'll just work on this side without breaking the yarn, without dividing stitches in any way. Simply follow the pattern instructions. So short row 1 is a right side row, so make sure that you are looking at the right side of the work. This is very important. Now work the number of stitches that is stated for your size in short row 1. For me it's going to be 27 stitches, but first I want to note what it means to work stitches. As we shape the neckline, we will continue to make the edging on this side of the work and then on the other side of the work as well. So we will continue to work the same stitches, those 5 stitches, 3 stitches in ribbing and the 2 stitches of the slim I-cord to make the edging of the sleeve. So that when it says the pattern tells you to work stitches, that means you continue to work in the established pattern, those 5 stitches over here, and then you simply knit all stitches. That's what it means to work stitches. So short row 1, work as many stitches as the pattern tells you to work. If you decided to add more stitches to make the sleeves longer, then add this number of stitches, those extra stitches, to the number of stitches that is mentioned in short row 1, because we want to place the neckline at the center of the front, right? If you don't add those extra stitches, if you decided to make the sleeves longer, if you don't add those extra stitches, then the whole neckline will be shifted, and that's not good. For those of us who didn't do any adjustments as to the length of the sleeves, we simply follow the pattern. So work, in my case it would be 27 stitches, and that means I work those edge stitches. So I knit one and then slip and then work 3 stitches in a ribbing pattern, and then I simply knit stitches until I get 27 stitches. But of course that number is different for every size, so check the pattern It's gonna be short row 1. Just follow instructions for the short row 1. Okay, I think I have 27 now. Let's double check. And I encourage you to double check the number of stitches at this step because it is very important for the placement of the neckline. If you are off a few stitches, then your neckline will be shifted and that's not good. So take a moment to count your stitches again, even if you counted them already. Let's see how many I have. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 20, 2, 4, 6, 7, 27. Good. So now we can make a wrap, and we're gonna make a shadow wrap. First, because it is less visible than the regular wrap and turn, and I just like shadow wrap, so I suggest making it. And I know it's not really a scientific explanation, but I feel it's kind of easy and comfortable. So how do we do that? We make a shadow wrap right here with the next stitch. So we insert the tip of the right needle from front to back under the top of this stitch, the one that is below. So we go this way, we pick that top of that stitch, and then, where's my yarn? Then we wrap the needle with the yarn, pull the wrap through, and then place that wrap on the left needle, right next to that live stitch. And then we turn the work. So this is gonna be our wrapped stitch. So it's a stitch plus a wrap. It's gonna be kind of a double stitch. And it is quite visible, and that's good because we're gonna look for that stitch in the next right side short row. But before that, let's turn the work and move to the short row 2. If you're worried that you will feel lost and you won't remember which short row you're working, then take a row counter. It's helpful to use the row counter in this instance because then you can simply keep track of the short rows, or just make notes, or I don't know, circle the short rows in the pattern, or somehow just keep track of that because it is important to know how many rows you worked. That's the shaping of your neckline after all, right? Okay, short row 2, nothing complicated. We simply work to the end of the row, and working again means working in the established pattern. So I'm gonna purl most of the stitches, and when I get to those last 5 stitches of the row, I will make the edging. I will work in the ribbing and then 2 stitches in the slim I-cord pattern. Okay, purl this stitch and slip the last stitch with the yarn in the front of the work. Turn your work, and now we can move on to short row 3. I will try to arrange the work so that you could clearly see what's happening. Okay, short row 3 would be work to 3 stitches before the previous wrap and turn. Remember I told you that this double stitch is important because first it sets the scene for the neckline, and secondly because we're gonna look for that stitch. This stitch is like lighthouse for us. We're gonna look for that stitch to continue shaping the neckline. And we're gonna work to 3 stitches before this stitch. So we will look for this stitch and then we will stop when we have 3 stitches before that stitch. And again, working means we continue to make that edging. So we knit and then slip and then do the edging, the ribbing, and then knit all stitches until we get to the spot that is 3 stitches before the previous wrap and turn. And that spot should be somewhere over here. Oh, right here. See, I have that double stitch, the wrap stitch, and then I have 3 stitches in front of it, and that means I should stop here because I'm working the short row 3. Now we make another wrap and turn at this point, so we will wrap this stitch. So we insert the tip of the right needle from front to back under the top of the stitch that is below the first stitch on the left needle. Then we wrap the needle with the yarn, pull it through and place that wrap onto the left needle. Now we have another wrapped stitch, and now this one is going to be our lighthouse for the next right side short row. So turn your work and then work to the end of the row. So basically we need to follow the pattern, because every short row is written out as it is. So short row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on, and the idea is always the same. We are looking for the previous wrap and turn. We are looking for that previous stitch, the double stitch that we created in the previous short row, right side short row. And then keep in mind that depending on the size that you are making, you will make different number of short rows, because the neckline will be different. It will be deeper for adult sizes, for example, than it is for kids sizes, right? And that's how we can set up the right length of the neckline by making more or fewer short rows. For kids sizes, you will work rows 1 through 8 and then you stop. For women's sizes that are slim and regular sizes, you will work short rows 1 through 10 and then you stop. For curvy sizes, you will work rows 1 through 12 and then you stop. And then we'll make short rows 13 and 14 for all sizes. So for kid size, I'm gonna just work 8 short rows, and then I will stop, and then we'll work the short rows 13 and 14 together. Okay, my 8 short rows are done, but your number of short rows will be different if you're not making a toddler size. Now, because I'm making a kid size, I will stop here. I won't make short rows 9, 10, 11, and 12. I will move right to short row 13. Short rows 13 and 14 are good for all sizes. So short row 13, work to 1 stitch before the previous wrap and turn. That's going to be this guy over here. So we're gonna again make the edging and just work stitches in the established pattern until we get to 1 stitch before the previous wrap and turn. Okay, now I have 1 stitch before the previous wrap and turn. It is right here. So I stop here. I make a wrap and turn again. So I go under the top of that stitch that is below the live stitch, place that wrap on the left needle. So I have 2 wrapped stitches in a row now, and then I turn the work. Now we're gonna get our old friends, the stitch markers, and one of them will go onto the right needle. So place the marker. This time this marker will mark where the shoulder seams should end, because this time we are kind of dividing. This marker will help us see where the neckline is ending and the shoulder seam begins. So when we make shoulder seams, we would know where to stop. So we need that marker for that reason. And then in short row 14, we simply work all stitches to the end of the row, again making the edging, working those 5 stitches in a certain manner, same way as we did before. Okay, purl and slip the last stitch, and that is it. The shaping of the right side of the neckline is finished. You can tell that there is this shaping right here, especially when you move the work to the cable of the needle. You can tell that there is something going on. It's not really straight anymore, same as like a back, for example. And now we move to the left side of the work to do the shaping at the left side of the neckline. And to move, just to transfer the work over here, we will work the next row. That's going to be the right side row, and that's the work, the row when we work across the row. So we simply work in the established pattern, and when we come across those wrapped stitches, we would work them together, we would knit them together with the wrap. So we'll treat these double stitches as if it was just a normal stitch. Well, I've got to the shoulder marker, and that means I'm coming to the section that has those double stitches. So I slip the marker from the left needle to the right needle. Now I have the first wrapped stitch, and I just insert the needle to knit these two strands together. And then I do it again, knitting them together. And then I have a normal stitch, and then I knit these two strands together again, and I think I didn't get right into it. Okay, now that's better. So that's how you work the wrapped stitches together with the wrap. You simply knit them together as if it was just one stitch. And then we continue to work in the pattern, knitting most of the stitches and then making the edging at the other side of the work. And now we move to the left side of the work so that we could comfortably shape the left side of the neckline. So turn your work. The first short row for the shaping of the left side of the neckline is a wrong side row. And these short rows are very similar to the short rows that we did in this section at the right side of the neckline, but we would do the wraps in the wrong side rows. So these rows are numbered as short row 1A, 2A, 3A, and so on. So they are basically the same idea, but because we do it on the different side of the neckline, we'll do it on the wrong side. Now, in the first short row 1A, we would work again a certain number of stitches depending on the size you're making to make that first wrap and turn, the one that is very important, that would be like a lighthouse for us. For me, it's the same 20. So the number of stitches is the same basically as we worked in the short row 1 at the right side of the neckline. And if you added extra stitches to make the sleeves longer, then add the same number of stitches to the number that is stated in the pattern for the size you're making. So simply work that number of stitches depending on the size you're making, work and then stop, and we'll make another wrap and turn. Okay, that should be my 27 stitches. Again, it is very important to take a moment and double check the number of stitches, because just the same as we discussed at the right side of the neckline, this first wrap and turn will set the scene for the neckline shaping, and we don't want it to be off center or shifted or anything else. So it is very important to stop right here, right now, and count the stitches and make sure that you have the same number as stated as in the pattern, or the same number plus the extra stitches if you decided to make the sleeves longer. So I should have 27, and let's see how many I have. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 4, 6, 8, 20, 2, 4, 6, 7, 27. Okay, good. Now we can make a wrap and turn again. But because we're making it on the purl side of the work, it might be a bit awkward. So bring the yarn to the front of the work and then insert the tip of the right needle again under the top part of this, the stitch that is below the live stitch, the first live stitch. Then wrap the needle with the yarn and pull that wrap through, and then place the wrap on the left needle. If you find it a bit fiddly, so I just undid the wrap to show you another option, an easier one. If you find it a bit fiddly to find that top of the stitch and kind of twist the needle a bit and to make that wrap, you can also go directly into the stitch below from back to front, and then purl, kind of purl a stitch from that point and then make a wrap that way. It will be less neat, but again, if it is really a big trouble for you to do it this way, then feel free to go right into the stitch and then make a wrap that way. Okay, so that's our wrapped stitch. See, it's double stitch. And now we can turn the work and work the short row, and I have my stitch marker caught my working yarn. And move to the short row 2A, which would be very simple. We simply work to the end of the row. So we simply knit all stitches and make that edging at the end of the row. And knitting the last stitch. Turn your work. Short row 3A. And all other short rows that are worked on the wrong side of the work follow the same logic as the short rows that we did when we shaped the right side of the neckline. So the idea is the same. In the on one side, wrong side, and for the left side of the neckline, we are looking for those double stitches, for those wrapped stitches, and you can clearly see the one over here. And then we work to a certain number of stitches before the wrap. So in the short row 3A, we're going to work to 3 stitches before the previous wrap and turn. Then we make the wrap and turn the work. In the right side rows, we would simply work to the end of the row, nothing complicated at all. And the logic is the same when it comes to the sizes. If you're making this tee in a kid's size, then you will work short rows 1A through 8A, and then you stop. If for women's slim and regular sizes, you will work short rows 1A through 10A, and then you stop. For curvy sizes, you will work 1A to 12A, and then you stop. And then we'll work short rows 13A and 14A together. They are the same for all sizes, but until then, just follow the pattern. Use row counter if that's easier for you to keep track of the short rows, and work as many short rows as you need for the size you are making, and then stop when you make that number of rows, and then we'll make the short rows 13 and 14A together. Okay, I finished the 8 short rows that I was supposed to finish for the because I'm making kid size. If you're making a women's slim or regular size, then you should finish 10 rows, and for women's curvy sizes, you should finish 12 rows. So short rows 13A and 14A are the same for all sizes, and now we're gonna work short row 13A. So work to 1 stitch before the previous wrap and turn. That's right here, and then I will stop when I have 1 stitch in front of that wrap and turn, and then we'll make another wrap and turn, and then we'll place a marker again. That's what's so special about these last 2 short rows, because we place a marker to divide stitches into stitches that belong to the neckline and the stitches that belong to the shoulders. And now I have 1 stitch before the previous wrap and turn, and I make another wrap and turn. I bring the yarn to the front of the work, pick the top of the stitch that is below the live stitch on the left needle, place that wrap onto the left needle, and then turn the work. Now we'll need our second friend, the second stitch marker. So I take that stitch mark and place it on the right needle. And we work the short row 14A, which is simple. You simply work to the end of the row. Okay, that's it. The short row shaping is done. There is a number of stitches in the pattern that should be, depending on the size you're making, you should have that number of stitches between the marker and the edge of the work. So basically the stitches that will make shoulders. Count the stitches between the marker and the edge of the work. Make sure that you have the same number of stitches as the number stated in the pattern for the size you're making. If you are 1 or 2 stitches off, then it's not really a big deal. It's better, of course, to have the same number of stitches, but if you're 1 or 2 stitches off, it doesn't really make much difference, so it's not worth it to undo all work and then do the shaping again. Probably you made a mistake somewhere, but it's not going to be the end of the world. So now the shaping is done. I hope that you don't have any mistakes and that the number of stitches is the same. See, we have the same segment of work between the marker and the edge. That would be our shoulders. And now we can cut the yarn, leaving a small tail. And we are done knitting. So that's the good news. Because there is no more knitting, we will simply finish the work. And you can tell the shaping is there when we place the work like this. You can tell there is this curve at the neckline, which is good. That means we did a great job. And now we'll see that curve even better when we finish the neckline and make shoulder seams first and then finish the neckline. But we'll do all that in the next part of the knit along. Now the everyday tee is almost finished. Just a few more knitting techniques to keep it all together, finish it off, and make it as nice as it can be. All of that knitting magic will happen next time in the last part of the knit along. Thank you for watching this video and have a wonderful week. I'll see you in the next tutorial.